Slightly later than advertised. Hi, everyone. So, before the preamble, this is a podcast, the Seattle Overload podcast, and today we're looking at the Seahawks 2023 mock game. We may include some clips, which we may or may not have, depends how scared I get. We're fearful of that. There's also Devon Witherspoon news. There's also left cornerback news in general. And we're going to give you a preseason what to watch for from the 2023 Seattle Seahawks, because obviously they play on Thursday against the Minnesota Vikings. But before that, because we haven't really advertised this, we'll let a few more people join. And so it is the preamble section, the infamous or famous preamble, depending on how you view that. I will be including in the timestamp down below a thing saying where the actual podcast starts. Please do like the video if you've joined, because it does help us grow. Comment in the comment section. Get involved in the chat if you want to ask questions on stuff as well. And yeah, get involved. It's a podcast, so 5-star reviews, please. Oh, Jen. Well, there you go, Jen. There's just too much for me. Jen, I don't think it'd be that confusing if you had me on one screen and then also the other appearance on another
just
screen.
Do it at the same time.
It all just blends into one. Jen, I'm going to probably repeat myself in some parts as well. But also, Griff wasn't supposed to know about that. Like, that was a kind of a secret thing.
I mean, you didn't do a very good job of hiding it. I saw the tweet.
Oh, no. That's how you found out?
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. We can talk about this off air. Yeah.
You don't pod and tell, huh?
No. No, I'm a gentleman. Okay.
You're gonna see Barbie. I'm gonna see Barbie.
You're going to see Barbie?
Yeah, when I get the chance.
Uh-huh. When?
Probably this weekend. A few days.
Yeah, I might see it.
Yeah.
I've heard it's okay.
I've heard it's really good. Not as explosive as the other one, but it's really good. Perhaps perhaps in a like figurative way.
Yeah.
In terms of discourse.
Right.
I haven't seen that much hand wringing about it though. Like film Twitter isn't like losing its mind in the way that it normally does, like picking it apart, films apart, but it's just embracing it like, oh yeah, this is commentary on that.
Which shows that it's done a good job,
Yeah. Like it's not pissing most people off. So
nice.
Anyway,
and the people who I have seen who've been upset by it are it good. Like I think it's done a good job.
Yeah, like Ben Shapiro. Yeah.
Yes, people.
Yeah. Ben Shapiro knows nothing about run fits.
Absolutely not.
He doesn't know jack.
Anyway, or Mike.
That was good.
Thanks, man. It was smooth how I like sort of hesitated in my way into that.
We like to ramble on our preamble.
Right. And also kind of wrong how we mentioned actual football during that. I mean, run fits are part of football. Griff, did you see that my defense allowed 9.8 points per game this season, which was the lowest in our division?
That's sick. Coached by your very own Seattle Overload Pod co-host, main host, Matty F. Brown.
Yeah.
Defensive coordinator running.
And let's not forget, Griff, you have reviewed some of the materials and said that looks good. So
I get all the credit for saying, yeah, it looks good. And he's also running, folks.
No, they can't tell this. There'll be our future opponents going to watch this and it will ruin everything.
Oh no. Oh no. You're holding them under 10 points a game. They can do all the film study they want, all the insider information. They don't stand a chance.
Oh, bare fronts.
Yep. All right.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Jen. That's very kind of you. It was long overdue, the haircut. I think I mentioned it on the podcast, but it was very much needed. Like, family, friends, partner. There was a lot of kind of pressure on me to do that. Players on the team I coach. It was bad. It was real bad.
They're giving you gruff.
mm,
Giving you gruff for your scruff.
Griff for my scriff. Okay. Should we do our podcast, Griff?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's talk some ball.
Oh, are the Mariners playing?
Yeah, it's a 0-0 top of the second. They had scoring opportunities. I'm sure
Did they
Ty
have what's their
I'm sure
late,
Ty
have
is
they,
raging right now.
have they continued winning or did they drop a few games?
No, they're winning. They're like 10-2 their last 12 games.
Nice, because I watched most of the Angels series and that was enjoyable.
Yeah, that was awesome. They're 2.5 games back behind the Blue Jays, I think, maybe 3.
They're still 2.5? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
When I last looked it was also 2.5. There you go.
Yeah. They're keeping pace at least.
Goms. Okay. Let's start. Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast, where Griff and I have a Seahawks mock game review. Yes, we've been handed, or maybe, we shouldn't admit this, Griff, live on air, but we have been handed materials, or maybe we haven't, of the Seahawks mock game. Thank you to those people who may or may not have done that. Very kind. We have like 100, or we may not have 100 different angles, basically, of the same play. So that was nice. Just like being there, really.
Many Boston spies died to give us this information.
Absolutely.
Do you even know what I'm quoting, Matty?
No, yeah. Obviously, it's that comic thing, isn't it? That those characters.
See, this is how undercultured Matty is, that he can't even spot a Star Wars reference from like the first movie ever made.
Well, I thought you said Gotham.
Bothan.
Bothan.
B-O-T-H-A-N.
I think it's the American accent. Obviously, in Star Wars, there's no American actors, so.
Yeah, many Bothan spies died. Anyway.
Well, hang on.
What
Star Wars is that?
A New Hope.
Whose line is it?
What's her name? Not what's her name, but she Mon Mothma.
Oh, you're right.
She's the senator who defected from the Imperial Senate, because she was originally from the Galactic Senate. She's actually been given a lot of backstory in subsequent canon.
Oh, there's extra canon.
Yeah, but originally she just delivers a banger of a line that's like really sullen and like you feel the weight of it.
Yeah, yeah.
She rallies the troops. She's like, "All right, kids, go blow up the Death Star. Here we go." Mark Hamill's like, "All right."
Get in that exhaust port.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Cool. That's great. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna look at a bit of the mock game. We also have news out of training camp. Devin Witherspoon, the left corner stuff, and that in general. And then finally, we will finish with a preseason what to watch for, because the Seattle Seahawks on Thursday night at an obscene time, especially for me, play the Minnesota Vikings. And watching preseason football can be tough. So we're going to try and give you a list of things to watch for, which, when I say list, that's like we've planned it out. So just imagine we have, and when it's not as succinct as you expect, you've been warned. Griff, you have a bee in your bonnet. Are you familiar with that expression?
No.
All right. Well, there's a bee in your bonnet.
All right, explain.
I think when it says bonnet, it doesn't mean like a car bonnet. It means like the hat, the headwear, a bonnet.
So a bee in your bonnet, that means like you're annoyed by something then?
Yes.
All right. So what am I annoyed by?
Well, you're clutching at straws of beat reporters saying that Devin Witherspoon is in the mix at left cornerback. Witherspoon hasn't practiced the last 2 days and has a wrap on his left leg. And I believe, let me just double check this, but I believe Pete Carroll hasn't updated reporters on his status yet.
Yeah.
They haven't been able to ask him yet what is exactly going on with that left leg. But Griff, your bee in your bonnet is that Witherspoon, I've already spoke on it with Ty in the news review, but Witherspoon is not just strictly a nickel, is he?
Well, I mean, he never was strictly a nickel. I think it's just, some people are a little concerned that it seems like he's only a nickel, but he's only been practicing for a week. He has 3 practices under his belt in the mock game. And it makes sense that they'd start him at nickel. It's also where there's the most snaps to get, even with Woolen not practicing. But Brady Henderson, I mean, he's informed, and he wouldn't say that. I mean, it could just be, just guessing, educated guesswork. But I don't know. I'll wait for maybe 2 weeks to form of training camp for Devin instead of just 1 week before determining he's not also an outside corner. Ideally, I think the ideal situation is that he's the base left corner starter and then kicks into nickel when they play nickel, and then he's replaced on the left side by either Trey Brown or Mike Jackson, whoever wins that battle.
Yeah,
but
if you can do that smoothly, then that seems like a no-brainer. The only reason not to would be if it's it just kills the momentum or kind of comfort. And
yeah,
I think what's really cool about this is that Trey Brown has sort of come back from the ashes, and his comeback is continuing. And bizarrely, Griff, he kind of is ahead of Michael Jackson now, because Jackson filled in for Rick Woolen. Rick Woolen is the starter, and so I'm going to stick with Rick. Rick Woolen is the starter, and so he's come back. He's going to come back. He did some exercises today, but didn't participate in practice. But he will eventually, and so then it's Jackson back to his old spot, a left corner, battling with Trey Brown, who has a head start on him and has reminded everyone of how talented he is when he's fully healthy.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Yeah. It is cool that, I mean, Trey Brown, I mean, seemingly just trying to parse this, that he's jumped the incumbent starter, only with a couple of weeks of camp. Last year, he didn't seem like he was as athletic as he was in 2021 when he had that month-long stint of really promising starter play. We were pretty excited about him. So it's cool that he's kind of reemerged, and he's going toe-to-toe with DK Metcalf, bodying DK up, which is hard to do because DK does play strong. Obviously, that's a huge part of his game. He wins through the route with his body and strength. And obviously he's really difficult to press, one of the 3 most difficult receivers to press in the league. So the fact that Trey Brown is been really competitive with him in camp is a good sign, I think, for Trey. So yeah, I'm excited to see what happens there. And also, if we take everything at face value, Pete has also been very effusive in his praise for Mike Jackson. He doesn't seem disenchanted with Jackson at all, which he would never verbally be explicit about that. But he's speaking about Mike this training camp the same way he did last year. And the way he spoke about him last year ended up bearing fruit. It translated, as in, at least what I'm saying is he meant it. It wasn't his regular, Pete speak. So I take it to mean that he means it this year too. So Trey Brown just must be doing really well.
Yeah, and I have to say, if you watch the training camp clips, which I sort of saw after Pete had praised Mike Jackson, and the real Mike Jackson praise arrived at the start of training camp, and then even before that in June, that's when Pete highlighted him as the standout. But Trey Brown looked like the best guy on the one-on-one drills that Mike Dugard of The Athletic tweeted out, the videos of those. He looked really sticky against some of the best guys out there, whereas Mike Jackson, and it just so happened his clips were mainly against DK Metcalf, which is a tough matchup, but Mike Jackson had a bit more struggles, and on other stuff that the teams tweeted out, DK's getting his wins against Jackson. DK actually beat Trey Brown today, so he is going to do that. He is a mismatch like that, as we all are very much aware. But it just looked to me like Brown was playing with excellent technique, and the quickness seems back. Quandre Diggs was effusive in his praise of Brown as well. So yeah, it seems like a very cool thing. And ultimately, the battle between him and Mike Jackson is just going to be ferocious. And I wonder if against, and we're sort of teasing our preseason thing, which we're going to end with. But I wonder if against the Vikings we end up with Jackson on the right, Brown on the left through a large portion of that game. Well,
Right.
we'll have to see. Now, Jen asks, are we worried about the fate of Kobe Bryant? Yeah, you should be, because why Bryant matters more is he, one, hasn't had as much praise. And then two, like if Trey Brown looks really good on the left and Mike Jackson looks really good on the right, that leaves Kobe Bryant as the nickel, but Witherspoon's clearly the better nickel. So then Bryant can't really compete for another spot because the outsides are stuck. And it seems like Brown and Jackson are viewed as ahead of Kobe at their relative positions compared to Kobe at the nickel spot. Now, there's talk of Kobe Bryant playing safety. Well, the reason that he's playing safety is because the nickels in this system have a kind of safety skill set as well, and vice versa. And so it's just a way of getting him on the field more often because of the stuff I've just spoke about. Like, and if he'll be able to play more and get more reps. But yeah, Brian is the guy who's less likely to play now. And that's a guy who played over 750 snaps last year, a guy who Pete Carroll told me in Munich, and yeah, he's going to be positive about his players, but he told me in Munich he can be as good as the best nickels in the league. And
he said that off the record too. Like,
no, that was on the record.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, well, I can't share off the record conversation. That would be absolutely outrageous. That's not journalism 101, Griff.
You're right.
It's on the record.
You're absolutely right.
For everyone to
that was an amateur moment for me.
Yeah, that's okay. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, there is a numbers game at safety. Like in my mind, Jamal Adams is part of the calculus here, but let's just pretend that he isn't. Like, say the first couple weeks or so, we can't go, and you all of a sudden have like no depth at safety. There's Joey Blunt, who is promising, although he did just get banged up.
He's hurt his lower back, so that sounds serious.
So he knows what's going on there.
On Monday.
Then you've got Jarek Reed and then Kobe now. So, and if the big nickel stuff, and this kind of goes into the next topic, them experimenting with dime as well. Like they kind of need Kobe at safety if he can fit there. So, I mean, he can function kind of more as a pure corner type of nickel, and but then they also need him to be able to function, like you said, on the more safety side of things. And then they straight up, if they want to use Julian Love in a versatile way, they also need someone that they trust in the back end as well, so that Love can insert down below as well, because Love is a little bit of a jack of all trades too. So if Kobe did play deep in this mock game that we'll look at, so that means that affords the ability to play Love where you want to play him as well. So ultimately I think it's just depth is great, but yeah, Kobe does need to, I don't think he's doing poorly necessarily, but he does need to stay on his game, his A game, because his snaps will get eaten into if he's not careful.
Yeah, absolutely. That is interesting what you mentioned, the kind of competition he has with Jarek Reed, and we have no idea what Reed looks like right now.
I have
but
no
like,
idea.
If they're planning to run, dime at a high rate, which I'm sure they are, like, depending on the matchups, it's kind of advantageous to have two kind of nickel types out there for either slot receiver on the passing down. So you could have the next guy could be Kobe Bryant and Witherspoon on the inside, with the two high safety behind in Love and Diggs in theory. Or it could be Jarek Reed. Pete Carroll mentioned the possibility of getting all those guys out on the field at the same time. And Seattle did run dime quite a fair bit last year. I need to get the exact numbers on that. But like, it was their passing down. Whenever it was a passing down, they'd try and get into dime, not nickel. And that was how Ryan Neal first got onto the field, wasn't it? But now this year, they've got more of a kind of corner skill set there, really. Or like the traditional nickel skill set, in the fact that these guys are a bit shorter. Reed's not the tallest either.
Right.
Okay. So mock game. Griff, what did you think of this mock game?
I think the main piece of information we can extract from it, Maddie, and I'll set you up here, is that when they go into nickel, they're four guys in the line of scrimmage, whether they've got, the edges are standing up or hand in the dirt. I actually kind of saw like three or one edge of the hand in the dirt, one standing up. Either way, nickel even, right? The technique and stances of the interior defenders, the defensive tackles, they are one gapping, they're power stepping, they're not mere stepping or two gapping anymore. Maddie, what did you think of all that? And what does it mean?
Yes, well, I have said this on other podcasts and I've tweeted about it a lot as well. But it's kind of wild because the first time we saw this was I thought they were running their bare front, but I was wrong because I didn't expect it to be a nickel that the nose tackle, rather than playing on the inside shoulder of the guard, would bump inside and play on the outside shoulder of the center. And be a bit tighter on pictures. Then the second time was in rookie mini camp when it was Carl Scott mic'd up and they showed us a very cropped angle of the line of scrimmage. But you could clearly see four guys down at the line of scrimmage. And one of those guys, Cameron Young, playing the nose tackle spot, power stepping into the center at a tighter angle. And I was sort of doubting whether that was the case because it was weird. Then Kenny McIntosh was very generous on his Instagram and tweeted out a video of the Seahawks run game and him going off. And in the nickel stuff, Seattle is power stepping, one gapping with their nose tackle rather than like last year, two gapping with their nose tackle. And then lo and behold, at the mock game, they're doing the exact same thing. So what this is a similar rejection of the Fangio way of doing nickel that they also rejected the Fangio way of running base bare fronts last year. They also did that. They went back to how they did it in the past, which was basically more one gapping unless they felt the need to two gap, which is buying time for a guy fitting from too high. And the nickel thing is, well, if we've got the numbers in the box, why, or even if the interior gaps are being fitted by inside backers, then why are we two gapping our nose tackle? Like, why? I couldn't answer that last year. And for the guys behind, it really seemed to cause uncertainty. For the guys up front, they were like, well, why aren't the guys behind getting this double off me? And the guys behind were like, well, I don't know where the ball's going. So
right
now...
So go ahead.
No, go ahead, Griff.
Well, I mean, so it makes when they play one high, cover three, cover one, it makes the run fit make way more sense. But when they do play too high still, switching from like two gap principles to one gap principles doesn't cost nothing. It's not just something, it's not like free, right? Like, so obviously, like you said, they're doing it to accommodate that last fitter because they play with one defender for every gap rules, even in too high, but they two gap up front to accommodate time and space not being on their side by allowing that by the time the second level, the safety from the third level, really the defense, by the time he gets down to the line of scrimmage, he's still aligned correctly in theory on paper. So now that you're one gapping, it might benefit every single player in the box, but the collective defense on paper is still disadvantaged because that means that his gap, his primary gap, which is probably a C gap, is going to be wide open. And there isn't anyone that on paper has any responsibility for like even helping there. Like the near defensive tackle could theoretically work over to it, or the linebackers can scrape over. They don't have that luxury anymore. So that suggests that they're committing to a different way of getting the nickel corner involved, or maybe line movement and stuff, so that the run fit makes sense, so that they can get bodies there. And it's not always the safety. Maddie, you said you saw more like pirating, where the three technique side and the edge side is slanting more movement than we saw last year, just straight up having the nickel fold into the B gap. Whereas last year
this is what it is, right? So so if they're gonna, even in too high, if they're gonna if they're in too high and they have five guys down at the line of scrimmage, well, then you have to involve the edge. The edges have to do their job. But then when a tight end comes into the picture, or a tight end comes into the picture to the quarter's safety side, that's when you can play with a 2 gapping guy or like a 1.5 gapping guy, like the 4-eye, and buy time for that guy coming down into the C gap. But in this 4 down stuff that they're doing, the 2-4-5, where they're 1 gapping all the time, basically rather than involve a safety in those interior gaps, you need to get the kind of overhang, so the curl defender or the kind of the guy walked out on a slot, he needs to fit into one of those gaps, because otherwise you only have like a 6-man box, and you need the extra guy, and so yeah, you to avoid that being a conflict. So, for instance, if he has to get into a B gap, but he's also out on a slot which is really wide, then it's pretty easy for an offense to conflict him and play on that. But the way to remove that, like Ken Norton occasionally did, was to move where the B gap bubble is by moving your front, and alleviate that kind of stress. So I'm trying to find a good example of that. I know I have it. Griff, do you have anything to add on this? Because it is
no. I mean, they're trading what was a scheme issue, or what am I saying? They're trading. I'm trying to word this in a way that sounds cool, but it's not working. Basically, they're making a schematic change for the sake of techniques that are easier on the players, so that they perform better. The downshot of it is that it presents a schematic issue if you view the picture statically. Therefore, we assume that they know that. Therefore, they're going to make more schematic changes to accommodate the inherent schematic disadvantages. So basically, a technique change, which means something schematically, and then therefore they'll scheme around that to make it work, which is just basically a return to more multiplicity in fitting the run. Ken Norton Jr. was very multiple the way that he fit the run. Clint Hurt was very static as a play caller. Now, again, the positive is that who is a defensive coordinator's right-hand man when it comes to making all that work? They're probably the defensive line coach. So Clint Hurt knows all these things. It's not like they don't exist to him in his mind. It's more like large, bigger picture stuff of why Clint Hurt decided not to do it last year. But he knows he probably could have done it. It just wasn't worth the the time cost, the analysis, like in the aggregate. So the fact that they're making these changes, it's suggestive of other changes, and Clint Hurt knows how to coach it because he had a huge hand in it in 2020 and 2021. So all in all, we're excited, I think, about this. I really do hope that we see a lot more line movement up front, more run stunts, not pass stunts, but run stunts, maybe run blitzing, just more single high in general is really the easiest way to make it work. And like, they have the talent on the perimeter to play cover 1, to play cover 3 match all day long if they want. I mean, even looking at their schedule, there's only a few handful of teams where you'd feel pressed to sit in too high the whole game against when they spread it out. So
yeah, what I'd say is just the other factor which I kind of saw was the safety keys, which last year they seemed to be very slow in too high coming down to play the run, which the idea being, I suppose, that helps against play action, and helps you defend play action and like race routes and stuff, and account for that being a problem.
Right.
But
I mean, you're right. In 2021, like, especially that from week 6 to 10, when they had really good pass defense and good run defense, when they're playing half quarter, Jamal or Neal is pretty much nestling almost into like the hook area at 8 to 12 or 8 to 10 yards in 2021, even though it's a split safety coverage shell. Like, they clearly are using their pre-snap acumen to know when they're running. So and like, it really seemed to spurn them against the pass. So
yeah, so this is kind of what we're talking about. So you can see how This is a 2 high shell. So you have the safeties back here. Now, this is a 245. So here is our kind of nickel type. Now, notice that's kind of a safety body. Also, the NFL numbers make this so difficult. But you have a linebacker here and a linebacker here. Now, Seattle always, when they're in the nickel 245 thing, they set the strength to the tight end. But what's interesting to me is how there seems to be a much clearer idea of where the run support is coming from. So I have a 5 down example of this too that I'll get to. Let me use my pen as well here. But if we just get that up. And not only a clearer idea, but a that didn't work very well. Not only a clearer idea, but also like a clearer way of it fitting. Like when we watched the Pittsburgh game last year, we didn't just it just didn't make sense to us. It just seemed like they were really just playing loose with the math, if you like. Okay, my pen is not working. Brilliant. Fine. Okay, so this guy here is this one tech nose tackle. Now notice he's lined up quite wide, which is a real kind of shade on the outside shade of the center. That makes sense for guys who are smaller, but and Seattle has these lighter guys up front, right? Like as we mentioned, Darren Reed is under 310 pounds. And Griff, I don't know if you heard me coping with Ty, but I think this is what they kind of meant about being more dynamic up front. Like they want to play more with shades. They want a 2-gap less, and only when they have to. And so they don't need these big hulking guys. But it's kind of bringing it back to it's almost bringing a tilt element to their nickel front and the way that they're going to play with their nose tackle. So this is this one tech nose. And so when we talk about the B gap bubble, well, I'm in 2 high. We have a detached slot here. So this safety, if we're wanting to cover this route or this route, if we're playing halves, well, this guy's got to get over the top of the 1. And if we're playing quarters, well, this guy's got to play on the 2. So there's no way this safety can be expected to play in this open gap. These 2 linebackers, well, this guy's got this A gap up in here. This guy's got this B gap up in here. So again, there's no way they can play in this open gap. This edge, well, you could do something with him, but he's an edge setter. He's setting the edge. So again, we've got an open gap here. This safety here, the open gap is away from him, and he is too high because they want to either get him over the top of this, and double this 1, or play him in a quarter and help him out in a deeper kind of 10-yard dig window, that sort of thing. So the only guy in 2 high, when you're playing this guy like this, because you could have him on the inside shoulder of the guard and kind of 2 gap and then have this guy play off him, or maybe have this guy read A gap into this open gap while this guy, in theory, keeps him clean off the guard, which seemed to be what Seattle was trying to do a bit more last year. But because this guy is pure 1-gapping, what has to happen is this guy, whose job could be, if it was cover 2, he'd just be dropping inside here in a curl, or if it was, quarters, it would look pretty similar to that. Or it could be that he's got a wall this guy, but the only guy who can fit the open gap with this guy playing like a 1-gap guy is this guy. So he can sort of slow play it if he gets a good edge set here. But if you watch how they fit this run, oh dear, that didn't work very well. Didn't work very well. I'm not used to clips which are this short. That guy triggers downhill.
Yeah, and everyone's playing vertical. So like 57 is able to just keep leverage with his A gap. Although he could probably play with maybe a little more urgency. And then there's it looks like Nwosu. Is that Nwosu? He's playing the D gap. And then the Will is playing the C gap. Or actually he's fitting off. Okay, so it's really more like Nwosu as the left edge is kind of pseudo 2-gapping.
I don't think it is Nwosu.
Whoever the left edge is, yeah, you're right, because those are the 2s. So the Will is pretty much like there are 2 gaps there, right? The C and the D gap. So
it's like a soft pirate, it looks like to me. Or
Yeah.
it could just be that because of this C gap and to defend against, okay, we've got a running back on this side and a tight end, which we can't see here.
Hmm.
It could be that, well, we can see they've heavied up this edge and he kind of plays a bit like how Seattle would play the old, well, like Michael Bennett in an over front, right?
Right. So last year the nickel would not be involved in the front. They 57 would be in the B gap, the will would be in the A gap, and then the weak safety would be the C or D gap fitter off the backside. So basically they've just kind of like the quarter safety can be like cleanup. Like he can truly be alley help, which will also help them on screens and things of that nature. So they can get bodies there. But so they're really swapping the safety for the nickel here. Um, Now the one downside of this is because it's cover two, I think to the passing strength, right?
Yeah, it's covered. So what ends up happening is they play what looks like palms out here,
Palms, okay.
and then over here is cover four, and yeah,
Palms,
which again is very Pete.
that is very Pete. What I was thinking was it'd be difficult for them to get the vertical hook match. So maybe from the nickel corner, where he can kind of carry the number two receiver, the slot to a certain depth. But palms would help kind of alleviate some of that because then that means the field safety can play more true quarters and play tighter on it. But maybe like again, maybe they play this in second and like inside 5-6 yards, right? Whether they can have run pass balance to their defense. But then second and 8, second and 7, play it more true pass oriented, right? So
Yeah,
maybe it's about down and distance and being really situational.
but what is crazy to me is how I haven't seen a two-eye nose tackle, a two-gapping nose tackle in their nickel front this season, like this off season.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's huge. It's huge. And so it also implies like straight up from this image, we can envision pirates, but we can also envision like entire line slants where everyone gains one gap on the inside. Um, so also I imagine the field side end would slant into the B gap too. I mean, like I just you can already see the multiple ways that they'll tweak things up front.
Yeah, so I've got a very similar clip here. I almost had to check that this wasn't the same clip. I believe it's probably the next play. And obviously in the mock game, what we should say is like they're trying to get the right looks. So it's advantageous for them to run very similar stuff each like back to back at times. So here you have a similar problem for the defense, and you can really see how shaded this guy is over the center. Again, it's nickel. So this is the nickel type player. This is the safety. This is the safety. Here's a corner. Here's a corner. Here's an outside backer. Here's an outside backer. And what I'm fascinated to see when it comes to the first string is this guy going to be the 5 tech because he's to the tight end? Are they going to really put this guy to the tight end and then have the and play it almost like, you know, we have a lighter type and a kind of bigger end type as well? But again, you have this, they've gone to the tight end, which they did last year, but this one tech knows. So if this guy is in the C gap or playing off this guy, and this guy, the 3 tech, is in the B gap, and this nose is in the A gap, then this backer either has to play in the A or the B. Now, how they fit this is quite interesting. Because they get, I don't know if they anticipated from this set. I wonder if they're cross keying because this guy's off the line of scrimmage now. If they're cross keying the guy off the line of scrimmage and whether he's going to rock back. And so rather than playing stacking in the gaps, they're kind of fitting off the flow. They're treating this almost as 2 back. But you can see, I think 57 is because he sees him come across. They also pull. But again, this guy is very much keying into the play, and it looks as though this is again cover 2 on this side, cover 4 on this side.
Yeah.
This player has a bit of difficulty.
He wastes some
Also,
steps.
you see the how if this guy, like, I'm not sure if 57 should spill, but they play it like turn back, don't they? Which I guess you can because it's 20 personnel.
Yeah, I think 57 might mess up because the will needs to be, he's not bracketing the lead block, or he's not bracketing the lead block.
I'm surprised
he's on an
how
interior gap.
The will, well, the will does, yeah.
He's not supposed to, because there is an extra gap to the left of the tight end from our perspective. So it would have to be the nickel levering someone. That's strange. Maybe he kind of folds in, doesn't he? He kind of fits off. He kind of corrects 57 a little late, but
again, the thing I want to highlight is this one tech guy, and against zone, this obviously looks a lot cleaner with the forward step, the power step, not the mirror step, but
yeah.
also these safeties, but particularly the curl defender, but even the safeties, they are reading for run more. Like they are interested in run a lot more. They're not. Their keys just seem a lot cleaner, especially compared to the preseason last year.
Yeah.
And that is interesting to me. And so, like, on the point of run support, I even noticed like stuff they tried to get involved with during, like, you know, as you saw the season progress and they tried to ramp up more. It seems as though they have kind of got that emphasis down at this point in the season. So if you look at even like their base bear fits and how they're doing that, there's like a clear emphasis into how they do it. So let me try and find let me explain that. So basically Seattle a lot of the time is going to be playing cover 4 on one side of the formation and cover 2 on the other side. So there's a clip where there's a 2 tight end formation, or a tight end on either side of the formation. And when Seattle's playing cover 4 on one side, it's very clear to me that I know what play this will show up on. It's very clear to me on the cover 4 side that they know where the run support is coming from. Like the run support, they have to play outside backer force to that, and so the safety on that side, who is in the quarter, so tighter to the tight end, he can probably help out in that C gap with the outside backer forcing in the D gap. It's very clear they understand that. Whereas on the cover 2 side, well, now you have a cornerback who's in the flat and a safety who's tasked with getting over the top of the receiver in the deep half. So it's very clear that the outside backer understands, okay, well, I probably need to help out a bit more in the C gap because I've got help to the outside. So if we look at, that's not the right way of doing this. And this is kind of, as I said, this is emphasis that I just didn't see in the game. So this is a good little look. Share screen. Come on. So here we have, and again, interesting. So Seattle's playing cover 4 on this side of the formation, and they're playing cover 2 out here. Now, I do believe it's trips over this side. So there's 3 receivers on this side, and there's no receivers on this side. So this is a corner, and this is in Seattle's base bear package. But it's interesting to me how...
And they're an under here, right? An under check.
Well, that is interesting as well, because I've just recognized something here. So this is a cool play. So because there's 3 receivers on the left, right? It makes this safety needs to be able to play over these receivers, doesn't he? Like he can't be expected. Same deal. He can't be expected to fit in the C and play on the number 2 or even 3 vertical, right?
Right. So
So
where's the second level help coming? Where's the support coming?
Right. So rather than play this guy in a 3 technique like he would in Bear, he's not even playing a 4-eye mirror stepping. He's playing out on a 5 tech to help set a new edge. Also helps out because this guy, this linebacker, is got a curl pass drop in the cover 4, like, or what do they call it? A quarter flat drop. So this guy, rather than playing up on the B gap, is bumped out to the C to get this guy out the fit, and then get this guy a bit of an easier time. Read and run pass means he's pure one-on-one. He doesn't have to worry about getting comboed up here. He can just read this guy. To keep it kind of one gappy, and again, in other, like last season, it wasn't clear one gap stuff. Like it was sometimes we didn't know who had the gap, but to keep it one gappy, this guy's in the B, this guy's in the A. One back, we have one gap. Sure, this guy's off, so he could drop back, but they have the number here. So that's the cover 4 side. Now, on the cover 2 side, it's a nub formation. So the corner can come in here and be the force player because he's got the flats. This guy doesn't have to be involved in the run fit, but the linebacker's in the A. So who's handling the C gap? Well, rather than ask the corner who's got the outside underneath space to play with into the C gap, this outside backer is forcing back into, is squeezing this tight end down. Like we saw in that nickel example, where the backer to the tight end to kind of buy time for the guy behind. He's going to just play aggressively through that tight end and kind of, it's not too gapping, but it's kind of just dominating the tight end, and he should be able to do that. So if you play this through, it's a sprint out pass, but you can see this guy's busting a gut to get inside the C, and this corner is waiting for anything back because he's in the fit. He's the cloud. That is awareness that was not there early in the season last year. And these guys are in their gaps. And look how this guy's fighting to set an edge.
Yep.
So a sprint out pass, but this is real kind of evidence of just smarter ways of doing it. They did not play this formation like this last year.
No.
And not with this kind of... it's logical, isn't it? It's logical.
Yeah. And it's just more versatile. It makes more sense. It's more sound, you could say.
It is. And that's what we mean by like the Pete Carroll way of doing it. Like, it's not that we don't understand Fangio's stuff as well. I mean, that is part of it, but really it just didn't make sense what was going on last year, and it just felt wrong. And it kind of proved that way. So what you see from a different angle of this play and what it allows their coverage to do, which by the way did get worked, but what it allows their coverage to do is this is the quarter safety who, because of I think it was Miles Adams, maybe not actually, but because of this guy bumping out to the 5 tech, keeping this quarter safety out of the run fit. This safety is able to get loads of depth immediately and play on the corner. This corner, I mean, that's a coverage beater for quarters. This corner's got to come down and rally to the check down. But so there you go. So some pretty cool stuff.
Yeah. It is.
And that's high level run fits, which Ben
in
would
their
not
mock
understand.
game. Yeah, Ben Shapiro would have no idea.
No. Okay. So I personally, Griff, I'm pretty bullish. Like, I'm thinking with that kind of vet pickup, which may happen, that Seattle's run defense is okay now. I think they fixed it.
Yeah, and like I agree. What
about the nose tackle situation, though?
Well,
oh,
I mean, it's my whole thing with the nose tackle was.
Oh, your whole thing, huh?
Was, if they applied this, it was more like it was trying to compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges. If they applied the scheme the same way this year as they did last year, I would have expected even more of a regression. In comparing apples to apples, if they gave up 3.7 yards per carry in 3-4 last year, with this group, I could see them giving up 3.9 yards per carry or 4 yards per carry, but that would still be really beneficial if they played more of it, or if they committed to finding other ways to play it, their non 3-4 stuff. So, if they did this stuff with last year's group, for example, I think they would have had a dominant run defense. I think they had the talent and the players to do that. I don't think they have the talent level across the board to be as good as they could have been last year had they schemed right. But I still think they have enough talent. They're hitting enough thresholds that if they scheme right, et cetera, and all their stuff, not just in nickel, that they can still be, firmly above average. Like that's totally attainable. I mean, they went from, in 2019, they were a below average run defense. And they went to they were like the 5th best run defense in 2020 with, their usual moves that they make. It was just a recommitment from scheme, Now, if they get Shamar Stefan level play out of Jaron Reed, it may not matter. And that is still something we need to look for here.
Sorry, Griff. Is that a good level?
That's really Shamar Stefan, if we remember, was the one technique / nose tackle in 2019. He was really bad. And Jaron Reed was really bad last year for Green Bay. Yeah. Now, again, he was playing 800 snaps. He was trying to be a pass rusher on early downs. He's playing a lot of
two gappy stuff.
A lot of two gappy stuff too. Did not look very good. So, they're letting him power stuff. They're letting him one gap more because he's playing nose tackle. Presumably, he probably won't be more than a 500 snap player. And however, whatever percentage of it can be attributed to technique last year, if you want to say 15% of Jaron Reed's bad play can be technique alone, that's purely within his power to correct. So, I think that he just kind of was disinterested with being a disciplined player. And I think being in the, under the
Seahawks culture.
Right. So whatever percentage of it,
a future Hall of Fame nose tackle.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So ultimately, I'm optimistic on the run defense. Yeah.
Yeah. So, wow, we've spoke about a lot. Griff, did you want to touch on nickel 4-1-6 being a thing?
I mean, I think there's commentary in that they're doing it in the situations last year where they would have had.
I don't mean nickel I mean dime 4-1-6. Sorry,
dime 4-1-6. Well, the commentary is that schematically it functions like nickel did last year in those same contexts. But they're saying is that we don't have the linebacker to replace what Cody Barton did last year, so we're having either a safety / nickel do it. An extra nickel back. As much as people dislike Cody Barton, this is the coaching staff saying we did not replace Cody Barton adequately. I just would have paid him $5 million to bring him back because I truly think he's probably top 10, top 15 coverage linebacker in the league, which Washington named him their starter out of the get-go. So he's not just a guy on their roster. He's their legit starter right now. So they brought in Bobby Wagner, they brought in Devin Bush, and they're not now. If Brooks gets back in the lineup, might they have Bobby do this? I sincerely doubt it because he doesn't have the lay. If they do, it's like they're saying forget about giving him difficult assignments, which you might say, oh, that's good. Yeah, don't give him something difficult, but that hurts your scheme to ask your players to do simple things because then that means your scheme doesn't have as much potential. So the fact that they're putting a DB out there there's commentary in that. And also further, you can't do that on 2nd and 3. You can't, if you want the coverage ability on 2nd and 3, you need to have a guy that can also fit the run in that same context. Now, maybe ideally Brooks is your Mike in that context and Jamal is that weak overhang or the de facto will, because he can fit the run up. He can finally live out and be the memed linebacker that everyone likes to pretend that he is, although Just because he can do those things doesn't mean he's only those things. But anyway, so that said, like 3rd and 8 or whatever, it's pretty nasty. 3rd and 6, it's pretty nasty. That personnel package, the 416. So whatever. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on it? I ranted and
Well,
rambled
they
enough.
did speak about in the draft process how like just the linebackers just don't exist anymore in their eyes. Like good linebackers, like there's less and less of them, and they're just harder to find. And so I do think it's a commentary on their linebacker position right now. Like, but I don't find that surprising. And like they're if they do have all this defensive back talent and the way they can match up, it makes sense. And when hopefully Jamal Adams does come back, then it looks pretty dangerous because it's kind of the 2023 version of how it's the 2023 version of when Cam Chancellor was used in Tank, like in the interior hook of cover 3 and came down into the box late. But you just have an extra DB, so you can do even more kind of match-uppy stuff. But like, I should also say, because it'll be confusing, it's not a 4-1-6, it's a 2-3-6. But the one of the linebackers is that middle guy. The other 2 are the edge players, because Seattle's still technically a 3-4 personnel. Anyway, it looks like a 4-1-6. Football's silly, but I don't. I mean, this mock game footage, I have to say, when it's not stuff Bobby Wagner can cheat as much, like Bobby Wagner is slower than he used to be, and you shouldn't be surprised by that.
He looked fine, but he looked really slow in the clips that we have. Now I'm gonna maybe he's not going 100%, but the chatter that Bobby he legit looks fast, like he hasn't lost a step. Like he's lost about 4 steps, guys. Like we need to be honest about that. Bobby is nowhere near the guy that he was even, in 2021 at this point. In 2021, he was not the guy he was in 2020. I think it's pretty steep, the athletic drop off.
Yeah.
So
just finishing on the defense, OG3 asks, what type of offenses are going to kill our defense this season?
It's a great question. Balanced teams. Teams that will drop back pass at a 12 personnel under center, and then teams that have a really good run game, that have a really good gun run game, basically. Teams that will work you. Now, theoretically, they're doing the things on paper that will fix it. But
it is pretty crazy to say this, given we haven't even seen preseason football, but I am feeling very, very much more confident in the Seahawks. I feel reassured by this in a great way. Like, this is stuff that may sound silly, but when we saw Seattle going back in week 6 of 2022 to the way that they'd done Bear before they'd implemented the Fangio system, we were delighted because we realized that the more one gapping power stepping style up front, not only did it suit their players, but it made logical sense. And lo and behold, it did give them a mini revival up front. If you remember how they got good at that again. They never switched back on nickel. And that's the question I'd ask Pete Carroll. I'd ask him, why have you changed this year? And he'll say, well, we have lighter nose players. It fits our players better. Yes, it does. But it's a chicken or the egg thing, except we know what came first. Like, they decided to get these lighter players, and they've clearly decided to change their nickel thing too. Why they didn't do that last year? Because Al Woods can power step is a different
Al Woods
question.
can do anything, yeah.
Maybe they felt it was just too much change or just too much giving into what players had voiced. I don't know, but it's very interesting to me why they've done it. Why they didn't do it, but they've done it, and it has filled me with a real confidence about the run defense. And if you can stop the run, then you can do a bit more of everything else. They're not giving up loads more.
It's all about how well can you defend the run relative to the schematic and personnel resources you devote to it. So right now they're finding that balance. I think they have their on paper answers when they didn't last year. So like that's half the battle, right? Or they had their on paper answers for about like a 5 week period, and then they acted like they didn't have them anymore, which is just bizarre. I'm really excited about the the versatility and stuff. Also, how what they showed in this mock game, even if it's not like forward defending, say RPOs, you can weave that into defending RPOs so easily. Like that's like Ken Norton Jr. Not to keep bringing him up, but like if he had a game plan for if he had a previous week game plan that was meant for stopping a variety of run concepts so we could stay in a too high shell to defend the pass, and the next week didn't have those run concepts, so they did run RPOs, the underlying like foundation of those calls lended itself toward tweaking one thing in it, like, okay, now you can defend the RPO, like changing the fits up, who's in the fit, who isn't. It's just stuff like that. So like they have like schematic pivot points now where they can kind of offshoot any given week. Anyway, they're no longer like last year they were vanilla. They're not vanilla this year.
So Adam Carter asked, were they catering to Sean Desai, who obviously is left now and is coaching the Philadelphia Eagles defense? Now, Adam, I mean, obviously Sean Desai does run that nickel front with the 2-eye, and he liked it a lot, didn't he, in Chicago? But I think Seattle likes the nickel 2-4 front, and I should probably have mentioned this. The reason they run it so much, Pete Carroll told me, like, it's because they want pass rush, and it's if you want to rush with 4, it is hard to get consistent, reliable edge pressure when you're only rushing one of your edges and you're in bare odd spacing. You have to have 2 guys on either edge and play 4 down looks, and so that's nickel, and that's why Seattle likes it. It kind of explains itself, which is what Pete said.
Yeah, I mean, 2014-15, when Michael Bennett became a full-time player and Cliff Averill became a full-time player, they wanted them on the field, and
when
they wanted
Justin
them
Coleman got paid because of that.
Yeah. They wanted they wanted them on the field, and that meant like giving them the best chances to get after the passer. So they played a bunch of nickel. Now it helps when you've got a unicorn, a guy who can legit threaten the edge and defend the run at 275 and make that bubble not be a problem in Michael Bennett.
Yeah, and do that kind of tight end obliterating that we've seen on here.
Right. So they lived in that. They lived in their the equivalent back then of the 2-4-5 now, which is just the 4-2-5.
And it helps when you've got Cam Chancellor as your pivot point who can play in the strong hook and fit the run from too high and play in the box. And you can do a bit of that 2-eye stuff with your nose, but yeah.
Right. I mean, and everyone's an elite player for the most part, right? And like that also helps. But regardless, like talent is not the issue right now with this defense. There might need some time to gel, just for experience sake.
They might need another nose.
Yeah. Hey, Brian Monet would be perfect right now. Okay, so as an aside, we don't need to talk about scheme anymore. Let's just talk about something fun. If Brian Monet comes back, it would be cool if Cam Young could split time between end and nose, because I think he can play absolutely any interior spot, and he'd be badass on tackles. Tackles wouldn't stand a chance on him. Because I mean, even though he plays high too a little bit, and it doesn't affect him because he's so strong on the nose, but like it's even that would compound positively for him because tackles play high too. You just get his hands into them and bench press them, and he would squeeze out the backside lanes really well. So I would like to see him play end too. And he said, Clint Hurts said, you might have to play a little bit of 4-eye, a little bit of 3-tech too.
Yeah, I expect that.
So yeah, I'm actually looking forward to that.
But yeah, just finishing on the Desai thing, bringing it back around to that. I mean, yeah, sure, he was a part of that, I think. But like, I think how it comes off from the outside looking in is that and Pete Carroll gives his coaches the freedom to take things where they want, and then it seems steps in when things aren't going very well, or is he's guiding. He has a lot of experience with football, but it seems that Hurt kind of just was like, well, let's do all of this, and they didn't really. Well, they clearly didn't do a good job coaching it, but it wasn't right for them. It didn't fit them, and there's a question whether it fits in the league.
Who does it fit right now? Who? Like even Ejiro Evero, who did okay in it, was finding every excuse not to run it. Like he ran it like I think like when I did the math, like 60% as much as the Seahawks did. Like Gannon and the Eagles and the Seahawks were caricatures, and the Packers. They were caricatures of the principle of run doesn't matter.
Yeah, the Eagles were a joke. But what I would say is Desai in Philadelphia, he kind of has the line to do it. If he can't do it with those guys, then
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you've got Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis now. If you can't do it with them, you can't do it with anybody. I mean, they ran that front in college at Georgia and they were really good in it because it's college. But this is the NFL. So, plus, do you want Jalen Carter playing 2/3 of his snaps as a two gapping heavy three technique, or do you want him getting after the passer? I don't know. Anyway. Yeah, I don't think they were catering to the size so much as they were just kind of letting them coach their vision up. Like it's also like Clint Hurt is also culpable, and so is Pete. He's the head coach. So, but there's still a lot of commentary in the switches that they're making. So also Carl, we shouldn't forget about Carl Scott. He's a main player now in all of this. So we have to assume he's involved here, and he has a lot of college experience in involving the nickel and the run fit, especially with too high structure and getting and using different ways to close the last gap off from too high. So he's no stranger to it. So he and Clint should work well together.
yep. Yeah, and yeah. Okay, so this mock game also, Griff, in aside from us being able to get very nerdy about the defensive aspects to this team.
Oh yeah, offense.
Offense is a thing. Gino was looking real sharp, and DK had a very odd kind of ball through the hand moment where he was wide ass open on a cross off play action. But Gino looked sharp. I know in the stat column it shows he threw 0 touchdowns, but like he led the team on touchdown drives. It just so happened it was run in by a running back, not thrown in by him. But Jackson Smith and Jigba has been one of the stories of camp, one of the stars of camp. As I said with Ty, like he seems like he's just had an amazing off season where it's just obvious that he's going to fit in immediately and be amazing. But he also, not surprisingly, given all that context, he looked real good in this game.
Yeah, he did. He caught a nestled wheel. Looks really shifty. Too bad we didn't see the that seam that he caught down the right seam. There was no footage of that. I don't think. Oh, you did? I missed it.
Yeah.
It was 92, by the way. Is that Tyreek Smith?
Yes, and we're going to talk Tyreek Smith.
He actually looks way faster than I thought he would have.
Look at this win from Tyreek, but Griff offense.
Okay. So cool little field wheel route. So it's a cool concept because it's go wheel. So the number one receiver is running a go route. The number two receiver is running a wheel route, but then he nestles, which means he like hunkers down. He doesn't keep running. Not something you see a lot often, but it's a good way to work into the space that's there. Because if he were to keep running, he'd actually probably run into the safety eventually. So it allows the ball to actually get to him. Is this
This is the same
angle?
play, but we got the different angle.
Is this not the same? Is this not what I was thinking? No, it is. Okay.
This is the nestled wheel.
No, it is. Yeah.
Say, whoever was filming this did an excellent job. What an angle this is.
Thank you to our boots on the ground.
Yeah, thank you.
By the way, BBK is not looking fast there, Mike. That's a rough final 3 match carry.
Yeah, another interesting thing is how Seattle punched and widened and played a lot of root curl flat kind of stuff. And also here this down safety is just playing weak rotated, and he's not matching 3 up to alleviate the stress on Ben Buck-Irvin as the 3 up player. That is interesting because last year Seattle ran the Fangio 3-match system, which was pretty successful. Maybe this is because it's preseason, so they haven't kind of ramped up their stuff yet. But yeah, interesting. It might be because of the cut split
Yeah,
of this guy, so they're expecting a rub. I don't know. Or because it's a tight end. You can see Pete's telling them to
yeah,
push it out.
yeah. I hate the spacing of this, but
But you can see how this is a real bind for cover 3. So
yeah,
this and the way JSN snaps this off, and also again, you remember that route he got Witherspoon on in camp, which the Seahawks took down, where he's able to
yeah.
accelerate so quickly while running wide. So
Mhm.
it's just he just gets a step on guys. Here then is that Jarek Reed? I think it is 32. Here it's a flat release, so he gets kind of picked in this way, and he needs to get hand on the new 2 because this 2 has eliminated himself. The corner here is thinking I've got to overlap on this and
In
try and
midpoint,
midpoint these
yeah.
routes. And JSN is so fast; he's already in the blind spot and snaps it off. This corner's got the deep third. He's trying to just work for midpoint leverage, and it's just over. And he's just so quick. Who was
Yeah.
23?
Yeah.
Was that Whitaker? Is it?
I don't know.
And
I
also
have no
super
idea.
encouraging the timing between Gino and JSN already. Like there's clearly a chemistry there,
Mhm.
and they'll just continue to improve on that. And maybe Tyreek Smith gets a sack here. Also, a cool concept how this is actually a sim or a creeper from Seattle. So they're sending their this is what we're talking about when we say dime. So this is 2, 3 linebackers, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 DBs.
Yeah.
They're sending this guy into the B gap. The idea being that in the offense's mind that they slide towards the Mike backer, so the center comes out here for the Mike, the guard comes out here for the tackle, this guy comes out here for the edge, but Seattle's actually dropping this guy into the strong hook of the cover 3, and they're rushing here, and because they've got the offensive line sliding towards the Mike and the linebacker, the only off-ball linebacker in this dime package, it ends up with this guy matched up on the running back in pass protection, and a matchup which, if you're thinking that's Jamal Adams, that's a nice matchup. That's what you want. However, good job from Evan Brown because they slide the preferable way. They don't slide to a dropper. They don't slide to Derek Hall dropping. They actually slide the center to where they're going, and they pick up the creeper in a good way. Although Tyreek Smith beats Lucas, kind of. And yeah.
And then
good football on show here. And here's
good
Kobe
stuff.
Bryant playing the post.
Good stuff.
I have to say, Cody Thompson as well had a really, really, really good showing. I don't know if the stats which the media department posted were correct, or if like loads of his plays got chalked off via penalty, or if I just didn't read them properly. Probably the last one, but I don't know if like Jake Bobo got credited with some Cody Thompson catches because similar complexion, similar position.
Perhaps.
But yeah, Cody seemed active. And then should we finish with a Tyreek Smith clip?
Yeah.
Okay. I think this is the one. Let me just double check.
Hello, Camden. Camden's
trending.
Oh,
yes, this is the one. Okay. This is a nice angle as well. Very nice angle. And Tyreek Smith, we should say, on the subject of the edge rusher, I like how he spent like 2 minutes on offense. But Smith is he was highlighted by Clint Hurt as the standout guy from like OTAs in June and earlier than that as well, I think. And his handwork and his fluidity, and as a guy who, because he's not like a supreme tester, he just stands out as well because of the way he wins. It's a bit different to these other guys, and he's kind of a handy guy. And Griff, you liked him coming out, right? For it's all relative. He's a day 3 pick, but you liked him coming out.
As day 3 edges go, he's really intriguing. He's really skilled.
Yeah. What was cool with the twos was, which Tyreek Smith was part of, they had some wins against the first string O line. Like the first string O line didn't do bad, but like Mike Morris held up against combos on the inside. Okay. Cam Young tested the anchor of Evan Brown at the center. And then here, this is Tyreek Smith beating Abraham Lucas.
So he has that jab step, and then he has 2 consecutive swipe moves, double swipe moves, kind of a club, and then it turns into kind of like a club rip again.
Yeah.
So the second effort's more like it's almost like a push pull. It's
yeah,
just
it is.
it's
With that dip of the
yeah. So you can tell like how natural all that is to him, stringing things together.
Yep.
And it is about 9-10 yards, but that stresses Lucas quite a bit.
And I wrote about this pressure, I think, in 2021, but they always do this in the preseason and then it disappears. But it's like a coffee house pressure, but for the inside backer where he fakes as though he's dropping out. It gets them big on big protection. Then they try and pick for him. I forget what I think Clint Hurt just called it one hug, but there was a clip where he installed it. Anyway, Google one hug pressures, and you'll find my article on it. Seahawks one hug pressures. Okay. Griff, is there any other mock game stuff you want to talk about?
No, we're good.
We're good. Okay.
We're good.
Well, finally, the Seahawks play in the preseason. We have kind of talked already and covered big topics to look for, but I will rattle off a quick list because we are having a long one tonight. So, left corner, right corner, specifically Trey Brown and Mike Jackson. They're going at it. Witherspoon, I doubt he's going to play if he hasn't practiced in a bit, but like it'll be fun to see him and the other rookies. The center battle, Evan Brown, Olu Oluwatimi. It sounds like Evan Brown's ahead in that, but there's still time for Olu. Then, is the run defense looking a bit more fitty? Because it was awful against Pittsburgh, and I tried not to put too much stock in that in the first preseason game last year. But this year, I'm going to believe to put stock in it. And if it looks good, then it looks good. And if there is still that one technique, which there should be, then I think we're in for a better defense, run defense season from the Seahawks. Griff, what else have I missed out?
Nothing. You got it all. Perfect. 10 out of 10.
Darryl Taylor. Darryl Taylor obviously is out with a sprained shoulder, so there's an interesting thing there because I doubt Nwosu will play much. So then you've got like Boye Maffey proving that he belongs as a starter versus the rookie Derek Hall looking to show stuff, and then Tyreek Smith, who we've just seen have an impressive few reps. And Cody Thompson, because we all, the news of D. Eskridge's suspension happened.
Yeah.
And obviously JSN, it seems, has got wide receiver 3 kind of locked up, but don't rule out Cody Thompson, who Griff compared to Cooper Kupp.
Like a taller Wes Welker, maybe.
Right.
Yeah,
he has some kind of Danny Amendola as well about him.
He's been impressing like 3 off seasons in a row, and then he gets hurt.
Yeah, and every preseason, yeah.
Yeah, that's rough.
That's rough.
All right, we said everything that there is to say ever.
No, hold on now. Hold on now. Any questions in the chat? Like the video, subscribe, 5-star reviews, follow Griff at CMike Spin Move, follow me at Matty F Brown. Seahawks on tape. I don't have my mug with me, but Seahawks on tape. There's my credential. Hold on. Oh, there's my game day credential from Seahawks on tape. My Substack, www.seahawksontape. Subscribe. It's free. There'll be an article on this one tech stuff. Hopefully with some Pete Carroll quotes. We just need someone to ask the question. Who will it be? Dun, dun, dun. But yeah. Thank you, everyone. Oh, here we go. Until Brooks Adams gets back, how dangerous will tight ends be against this defense?
Much.
Impossible to know.
Yeah, because I mean, like, in
Lots
what
of
ways?
variables.
Yeah, like in what ways are we worried about them hurting them? Like on boots and stuff. That's just doesn't really matter who's out there. Everyone has to play their rules. Like more downfield at the intermediate. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to see. You don't want to see Bobby Wagner matched up with George Kittle, do you?
Yeah, you think that'd be a safety?
Yeah, I mean, we imagine it to be a safety, so I don't feel like it has to be that big of an issue. It's just more like I don't know. It's kind of more
I am worried
complicated than
about
that.
play action boot defense.
Yeah, yeah.
There you go.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
We
guys.
appreciate you. We'll be back after the Thursday night game with a live reaction to some preseason ball. It'll be fun.
Yes, I can't wait. We need real football. And then